PlayStation needs to make more limited edition DualSense controllers. They got to up their game.
I don't know. I don't want to have a bunch of them, and I don't want to
feel
want
like,
them.
Yeah, but I feel like you need two because the batteries are they're so short.
Oh, yeah.
That if you're really going to get in a gaming session, you need to have the other one on standby sometimes.
DualSense akimbo, just like
DualSense akimbo. Oh, that's so good. Welcome to the Nerd Nest, everybody. I'm Bill. Today I'm joined by Carrie and Russ, both who have been on these huge, awesome international trips, and I'm very jealous. Last week we got to hear about Russ's little international trip. Carrie, why don't you tell us about Vancouver, man?
Yeah, sure. So I was invited out to LTX 2023. This is Linus's expo. There's actually a tremendous amount of people in there so the venue is pretty small for a convention compared to like other conventions that I've gone to. So it wasn't gigantically huge. So I was like, oh, I guess it's kind of on the small side, but they packed this thing ridiculously. It was almost hard to walk around at times inside of this convention. So it was really cool. Super happy to be doing the Future of Handheld Gaming panel. I was there with Shank Mods and Epos Vox, and I talked with them for a bit, and it was good to get their perspective on things because I think they helped flesh out the panel a good amount. Also, just really cool to talk to them. I talked with Shank Mods at length behind the scenes. There was actually a little creator nook caddy thing place where just creators can kind of just chill and decompress. I met up with a bunch of other creators, some that I've been fans of for a while now. So Wendell from Level 1 Techs, who I've been following for a while now, just because he has done some stuff that I have leveraged for my job, for my career. So he's done a bunch of stuff, and I've relayed to him. I was like, that video that you did where you got the Amazon CPUs, I tried convincing my company to get it, but they didn't do it. But it would have been great for us. But anyway, we kind of kicked it off. He's been fascinated with my takes on Oculink, and he's doing Oculink on the server side, but also on mini PCs as well. And he's going into it pretty in depth as well. And we're kind of just talking about where AMD sits right now in regards with how they're doing device IDs and how peculiar it is against all the disparate manufacturers having their own device ID for 7840U. So it's a pretty interesting time right now. But yeah, Vancouver is super awesome, beautiful city. It's when we first got out, I was talking to my wife. I was like, man, the air is like, it's like sweet. Is this what not pollution smells like? And it was just like mountain sea air that was just all around, super easy to breathe. Feel like it was so nice. Beautiful weather, perfect weather. Apparently it's always beautiful there. Hardly snows there at all. I got poutine there, which was okay. I got steak there, which was not great at all, and really disappointed with that. And I went to Tim Hortons and did some other places, and I had a great time. Overall, it was just action-packed. Like we just jammed 4 days as much as we could while we were there. And then I got a bit of jet lag afterwards, but overall, just had a fantastic time.
That's awesome. I love the idea that, like, you're talking about how nice it smells there. When I was stationed in Hawaii and I got off the airport, I was like, oh my God, the airport smelled like flowers. It was beautiful. Where I was coming from Georgia at the time, and the airport did not smell like flowers. That's awesome, and I'm so happy that you got to go. I tried looking for the content. I saw one where it was you one-on-one, and you guys were talking about the future of handheld gaming, but then the one with you and Epos Vox in them, I couldn't find that anywhere. So was that like live streamed, or was it recorded, or was it just for the people that were there?
So that was recorded at the convention itself. So every panel was actually recorded. I know that the WAN show was done live. So you can actually see the WAN show live from that place, which was like just after hours, I believe. So okay. Linus came in right after our panel. So they did record it. I don't know what is going to happen there. My wife did record a good amount of the panel, but I don't know how much I'm allowed to share. I should probably just reach out, because I've had a few people ask me about it as well, because they want to see it as well. So I am anticipating personally that Linus is probably, the whole LMG, the group itself is probably going to have this content that they're going to kind of go out little by little, maybe have commentary on it. Not sure. To be determined. I'm not certain myself.
When it comes out, if you find out about it, let us know. Let's move on to what we've been playing. But first, I just want to let everybody know that we do have comments that come in from you guys, suggestions for topics. And one of the topics that we're going to talk about at the end of the show is what game would you like to see adapted to a different genre? So let us know what you think in the comments down below. And at the end of the show, we're going to be talking about that. But let's move on to what we've been playing. Russ, what have you been playing this week other than Final Cut Pro? Because I know you've been editing a lot of videos.
Yeah, I've been working on this one handheld device review that's now like 3 days past my own timetable. I'm so far in the weeds. The rough script right now and edit and everything is 2 hours long. So I have to cut this down to like 30, 40 minutes. It is crazy. And that's like 2 hours after cutting down, 30 hours of footage. So this is just, it's insane. For $100 handheld, what am I doing? Anyway, so Final Cut Pro is what I've been mostly doing, but when I do get moments here and there, I've been playing Stray on my ROG Ally, and I don't know. I thought this was a great little game to be able to play on a handheld because one, it doesn't require a lot of power. Like I can play it at the regular 15-watt power profile, and it works just fine. And it's like it saves it every minute when you're playing that game. So even if I'm just going from like one little room to the next little room, I've made progress. It saves. I can just close out of it and come back to it. And so it's been just a really nice, lightweight game to just kind of take a break with, as opposed to trying to think through and that kind of stuff. So that's all I've been playing.
That's awesome. How far into it are you? I didn't get very far. It didn't hold my attention, but I loved the world that they were building in that game. It's really, really cool. For those of you that don't know, it's a game where you play as a cat. And I think it won an award last year. How far into it are you?
Oh gosh, probably maybe 25 minutes. Like nothing significant has happened other than my cat went into a new area.
Okay. All right. Don't forget to use that meow button all the time.
Oh yeah.
It's just so good. Did you play that one, Fox?
I own it. I'm waiting for it to come. Funnily enough, I'm waiting for it to come to Xbox just because I'd rather get achievements there. That's the only reason. But I do own it on PC.
That's fair. What have you been playing this week, Carrie?
So, all right, this is probably a weird one, but maybe not so weird. I played Sea of Thieves, the expansion, which has Secret of Monkey Island as their DLC expansion, which is super cool. I played with some buddies, and periodically I'll just play with them. And this felt like just a full-on point-and-click adventure inside of Sea of Thieves. So you're just doing very adventure game, the 1990s adventure game stuff as you're going through, but it's all in Secret of Monkey Island. So a lot of things are just like, as you're going through, they recreated it almost one-to-one which was super awesome to see. They did mix up some things just so, you're not, literally following the game. So after I played that entirely, I went ahead and started playing Secret of Monkey Island 1 all over again. So I'm playing that. Just finishing up on that, and then I'll probably play Secret Monkey Island 2. And I'll probably stop there because I didn't really like any of the further Secret Monkey Islands.
Are you playing with the voice mods?
So I'm actually playing the XBLA Xbox 360 version. So
yes, but it does have voice, right?
It's for the first one is unfortunate because you can dynamically switch between the remastered one and the old graphics, but there does not seem to be an option where you can be in the old style, which I prefer, with audio dialogue. You have to go into the new one to get audio, and you'll switch between both, so you have subtitles with nothing, and then you go to the other one. I wish you can just have voice for the older style, the original style, but I just typically just play on the old style, just because the new style I can appreciate what they were going for, but I feel like all of the charm is robbed of it. It's almost like they were like, what if we did a Funko Pop of a game? Let's just strip all the soul out of it and just merchandise it. That's that. But I'm still enjoying playing the older version, just getting achievements there.
That's awesome. And Rich just jumped into us a little bit late. Rich, what have you been playing, man? You are muted.
I was going to say, I see it on the list. It's Baldur's Gate 3. That's what I've been playing.
Oh, man. I keep on reading Twitter stuff. And I never played it super advanced for BG2 back in 97. So like I sorry to interrupt here, but I'm like reading different things and I'm like, goodness gracious. Some guy is like, oh yeah, I silenced the wall so that when I blasted it, it wouldn't make any noise, so it wouldn't alert anyone. I'm like, what?
That's so good. That's so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm only just getting started, and I've never really gotten into CRPGs. I've mentioned here on the podcast before I didn't really have a gaming PC, so it's one of those things I've always wanted to jump into, and this seems like the perfect place. I've also never really gotten into like Dungeons and Dragons, so I'm not used to actual dice rolls, but I'm enjoying it. It's fun. And what I'm really enjoying so far is I know a lot of people have been sort of describing that this is still like a very hardcore CRPG. They didn't like make any not accessibility, but they didn't make it. They didn't make any compromises in it being a CRPG and hardcore CRPG, which I'm sure is true. But it doesn't feel intimidating to jump in, and I think part of that is just the narrative, the story, and just building already just an atmosphere that you really just want to jump into. So I think they've done a good job of onboarding a newbie like me.
That's awesome. I will say the dice, like the dice rolling, the rolling of the 20-sided dice feels really good. Like when
It
you
does.
you go to do a thing and it's like, okay, roll a die, and it shows underneath it's like you got these ability scores which are going to improve your die roll. This is the target that you're looking for. Hit a button and the die starts rolling, and you're just like, okay, the dice number comes up, and then it adds in the ability score for like your thieves tools. It adds in your dex bonus, and then it's like, yes, you did it, or no, you didn't. It is super satisfying, both visually and audioly. I don't think that's the
Yeah.
right word. It's awesome. I love that that aspect of the game, and I'm also playing a bunch of it. I played it for like 8 hours so far. How much time do you have into it, Rich?
3 hours. Like I just fell off the ship and stuff like that, so I'm just sort of getting my bearings on ground. So about 3 hours, I'd say.
Did you play it in early access at all, or is this your first time with it?
Not at all. I bought it after it came out, after it
Okay.
released from early access.
So I played it in early access on Google Stadia, and I played through. I'm not gonna say most of Act 1, but a good chunk of Act 1, and it is completely different than the first time that I played it. First off, the UI for using a controller is way better and way more manageable. That's one of the things I was really worried about, because I don't like playing games on mouse and keyboard very much. So I was very worried about that. No need to worry. You can easily play the game, although I haven't found a way to get my whole party to stealth all at once, which I know you can just hit Shift C on a keyboard. But if you're using a controller, I can't figure out how to do that. So I always have to like go to party member number 1, stealth, party member number 2, stealth. And that takes a really long time. But all of the things that I'm doing, like it's just it feels like a completely different game. And there's events that happened in locations. Like there's a point where you walk up to a mind flare and it's laying there. And the last time that I did it, when it was in early access, there were like other people there, and I had to convince them to not kill it because I wanted to interrogate it or something like that. And this time, there's no other people there. The mind flare is just there. So like they've changed quite a bit from early access. Did you This game is a very horny game. Did you turn on the nudity? I have that turned off. But what did you choose, Rich?
I chose to enable the nudity. I'm playing on a portable machine, so yeah, it's only for my eyes.
I feel like if I'm playing it on my TV over there, and
Yep.
my kid walks in the room, I want to have that stuff turned off. But
Yeah.
it's there for everybody who it's very important to them. So there's going to be all that bear romance happening, just not on my screen. But I'm really, really enjoying the game. It's so incredible. What class did you go with?
I just picked one of the like default characters, so you can go to a different tab to see like different characters, and I picked Will. So Will is he a wizard? Like
I don't remember their name. Maybe I
Yeah.
haven't met him yet.
so they just have like these prefab characters that you can pick from. So
Does
I
he
went
have
with that.
the guy with one blind eye?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay, I don't
Yes.
know what class he is because he went to my camp because I already had a full party when I got to him.
Yeah. Yeah, I was intimidated by the stats and the classes, and I was like, I just want someone that looks cool and their background sounds cool, and he was the one.
That's awesome. I will say, like you said, they're pretty good at hand holding with the game, or not necessarily hand holding, but making it feel like it's okay when things don't go the way that you thought. I tried to like make a choke point and have an explosion to kill a bunch of enemies, and I ended up killing 2 of my characters. And normally it would have made me feel like, okay, I need to reload my last save. But instead I used 2 scrolls to revive my party members. I healed them back up and ended up winning the fight. And it was really, really satisfying. So when you get killed, and you will, don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. Don't save scum unless you feel like you have to. And I know Russ is going to. But go ahead. What were you going to say, Rich?
Did anyone see the tweet where the one guy said he killed an innocent woman with a mace to just loot her stuff? I think she had something valuable. He looted her and then used a revive scroll on her and gaslit her into thinking he was her savior. So now she's indebted to him. So yeah, this game is amazing.
Oh my God, that's
I did see that.
crazy.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that one. So, Carrie, you said that you're picking it up or no?
Oh yeah, so I did play it in early access a while ago, and I stopped playing it because at the time, this is before the Steam Deck even existed, I was playing on other portables, and the font was just outrageously tiny, and I was like, it's impossible to play on. At this point, it was the Win 3, but yeah, so I played early access, and I was like, I'm not going to pick it up until it's done. So I'm going to pick it up very, very soon.
In addition to all the like changes they've made for the Steam Deck, they added a slider for font size and 2 different font sizes. Basically.
Transparency too.
Yes, so that you can put a background on the font, so you can actually see it better. So yeah, it's amazing the work that they did to make it playable on a handheld, but also like big screen sort of deal. So yeah.
Russ, is this game in your future, or is this not the kind of game that's in your wheelhouse?
It is so hardcore. Like I don't think I can get into it. Like I don't know what a Baldur's Gate is.
It's a city.
It's like,
Me neither.
and so like I remember back in the 90s and stuff, a lot of these computer games and stuff like Heroes of Might and Magic and this and stuff. I have no idea what any of those are compared to the other. I'm a little bit interested just because I have been seeing some interesting things on Twitter. Like I saw somebody said they walked into a room and there was a bunch of skeletons on the ground. They're like, oh, these are going to get revived. And so what they did is they shrunk them down and then put them in a bottle. And then when they did revive, they didn't do anything because they were just harmlessly in a bottle, I guess. And so little things like that. It's just kind of interesting the way they can play around with the game itself. But yeah, I have no idea what it is. I haven't even seen a screenshot of what this game looks like at this point.
Oh, okay. Well, you got to see it. It's really good, and it's it's a pretty game if you've got the hardware for it. I went into that same room, and I had the same feeling like, oh, these guys are going to get revived. So I went through and I looted them. So they didn't have any weapons. So I was like, give me that, give me that, give me that. Okay. And then when they got revived, inevitably, like the warrior, like couldn't really, like all he could do was unarmed attacks. But there were a bunch of mages, so they could still cast spells and stuff. But I'm loving it. I feel like it's a game that I'm going to be talking about for a really, really long time because it's just so damn good. Anything else you've been playing, Rich?
No, I mean, I have more Baldur's Gate 3 stuff to talk about.
Do it. Go ahead.
Not what I've been playing, but there was a lot of discourse over the weekend, it seemed like, about AAA gaming and this not being possible in AAA gaming and why that is. And so like some of the discourse took a bit of like a weird turn where it's like just people trashing AAA gaming. And I think all of us here have been critics of that industry in the past. So like we're not immune to that, but it seems like there was a good tweet from Rit Nelson at Rit Nelson, and I'm still calling him tweets and Twitter, and yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah, thank you. About basically how we can trash AAA gaming, but really this sort of game is just they Larian Studios was literally the only studio that could make this just because of the experience that they had and the path that they went through. Like even Obsidian, the CEO of Obsidian, I think came out and said, yeah, we couldn't have made this game. And the last time Obsidian put out, a CRPG, which was really good, Pillars of Eternity 2 at the time, they ended up, that game didn't end up meeting expectations. They couldn't afford to keep the studio running on their own, so that's when they got bought out by Microsoft. So it's really hard, and Baldur's Gate 3 it didn't get lucky, but it's a little bit of just timing and things like that where no one else could have done what they did. And yeah, so it's pretty amazing to see.
Yeah, and the CEO of Larian, Swen something, I forget his last name. Like they were talking. There are a bunch of people, of course, started talking about acquisitions. Who's going to buy Larian Studios? And he was like, "Ain't nobody buying Larian Studios. I'm in charge of this thing, and it's not getting sold." And that's awesome to hear that he's like, he could easily say, "All right, it's time for the dollar signs. We got this huge game, 800,000 people." We're playing it concurrently on Steam, which I guess is like a new record or something. I don't know. It's such a crazy game. So if you haven't played it, check it out. I guarantee that you guys are going to like it, especially if you like an old school CRPG. And if you don't like old school CRPGs, pick it up on Steam because they have a ridiculously nice return policy. Play it for a little bit, and if you don't like it, return it because it's a game that deserves to be checked out. I do wish that they had a demo for it where you could just do like the Nautiloid, which is a ship you're on at the very beginning. So that's the game that I had been playing. Another game that I have been playing, and this is a little plug for the community Discord, is Coffee Golf, which is one of those games, you play it on your phone, and every day you play a different round of Coffee Golf, and all you got to do is you drag it back and you shoot the ball, and you have 5 holes, and then at the end, you know how like in Wordle where you could copy out and be like, these are the words that I spelled or whatever. Like you can copy out and paste your score, and we've been doing that in our Discord, and it takes like 5 minutes to play, and you can only play once a day. It's really, really enjoyable, and it's on Android, it's on iOS, and it's really fun. But you get really angry sometimes when a tree knocks your ball out into the water, and then you end up with like 4 strokes on one hole. But those are the games that we've been playing. Let us know what games you guys have been playing in the comment section down below that YouTube channel or the YouTube video. Let's move on and talk about the news. Russ, why don't you go ahead and pick out one of the stories that you want to talk about today from the show notes?
Yeah, let's talk about the Linux and Mac and Steam thing. So there was a report that showed that looking at number of players who are using Steam, there are more people using Linux as a platform for playing games on Steam than there are people using Mac. And I thought that was really interesting because one, if you look at the desktop gaming space, it's like 3% Linux, 20% Mac, and then the rest is like Windows or other. And so it's pretty interesting to me that with a 3% install base, at least on the desktop clients, compared to 20% install base with Mac, that there are more people using Steam on Linux than Mac. And obviously that's probably got to do with the Steam Deck. And so I thought that was just kind of interesting. It doesn't mean there are more people on Linux, really. It just probably means that there are Windows users who are now playing on a Steam Deck as well, and so it's counting for Linux basically. But I thought it was really interesting. I like my numbers, and so I thought that was cool just to see that weird dichotomy.
I think that number is going to explode if Valve releases Steam. Like I know that they said they were going to release Steam OS, like as you just download it and install it. I think that number will explode once that happens because for me, I very much prefer playing games on Steam OS than I do on Windows. I have my dedicated Windows machine under my TV over there. I have my Steam Deck. I have my ROG Ally. The best experience for a controller first experience, I guess, is my Steam Deck. It's so much easier to deal with. Every time I boot up my computer, I have to grab a keyboard and put in my code or do like, it didn't quite get to Steam this time, so I gotta go switch my mouse over to my Windows machine and do it. And that's always very frustrating. And I run into the same issues on my ROG Ally where it doesn't always work the way that I want it to. So I think that that's going to change. Do you guys, Carrie, do you think that they're going to be releasing that anytime soon? It seems like it's been forever.
It's hard to talk about. So this is something that I actually talked about at the Future of Handheld Gaming panel. If you take a look at all the commits that they're making, you can see that from an outside view in, that they're doing a ton of work to have SteamOS be completely extensible to arbitrary hardware. And they're doing that in a few different ways. They're doing it by grabbing the EDID from any particular panel, both internal and external panels, being able to override the EDID to do whatever you wish to do with it. Then they do other things with it. So from the EDID, they can get the chroma, and then you can apply a 3D LUT on top of that, which is something that Vibrant Deck like kind of does but doesn't. They do it in a more advanced way, which also allows other types of filters. SteamOS 3.5 also changes the entire micro SD functionality, where it was hand rolled previously to the Steam Deck alone, and now it is multifaceted and standardized to support any hardware. So any type of SD card that will be on any system, the SteamOS 3.5 will now recognize it. So there's a lot of work that you can see that whereas custom hand rolled stuff for the Steam Deck is now supporting anything, any arbitrary thing, to its maximum extent. Does that mean that when SteamOS 3.5 actually becomes available, like as a stable platform, will it release? I don't know. Um, I've been talking with Valve with this a while ago. I actually had Ambernick and Valve work previously for a bit, and I think that experience might have soured them on the whole thing, because they stopped talking with pretty much everyone after that. And I think they switched gears. Instead of Valve being directly working with these companies, that they were going to pivot to a direction where they can generally support SteamOS 3.5, and other vendors can then take that and then hook into whatever they need for it. So ostensibly, yes, they could potentially come out soon, but Valve works on their own time, so who knows? Um, I couldn't tell you one way or the other, because I have been talking to them, and every topic I bring up with them is met with silence now. So I don't know what's going on, to be sure.
Yeah, my emails kind of have like I was getting emails back and forth with Valve, and that has all completely stopped. I emailed a question about input, Steam input, and something. I would get an answer, and now these days it's nothing. And I don't know if it's just because they're just too busy working on stuff, or the number of people who are suddenly communicating with them has kind of skyrocketed, and so they're just like, listen, I can't talk to all these people. I got stuff to do.
Yeah.
Rich, have you installed? I know that they like there's Hollow ISO, which is essentially like a version of Steam OS that you can install on your own hardware if you have the right hardware. Have you installed that on anything, Rich?
No, I haven't done any of that. But what I'm getting one of those mini PCs, and what I'd like to do with it is not install Hollow ISO, but install Chimera OS. It seems like the furthest along. It seems like it has the best like driver development so far. So that's the one I want to go with. And yeah, that's good to hear from you, Carrie, about like the progress on the commits, because I've definitely been skeptical of where the progress is in terms of like I know that they're working on it, and I know that they want to do it right, but it just doesn't seem like a priority right now for them, especially with Deckard being something that seems like it's close to being released. That seems like where they're going to focus the Steam OS developments. So it's good to hear that they are actually doing all of that stuff, especially like you mentioned the EDIT stuff as well. That's pretty cool. And also, I wanted to chime in on the Anbernic experience. I can see why that may have soured from the outside looking in, right? That may have soured the relationship, because when I tried SteamOS, their version of SteamOS on that Win 600, it felt like Hollow ISO. It did not feel like an official ISO. So my experience was certainly soured because it didn't feel like, I had the buttons that I needed and things like that. So I do wonder where it will go from here.
So for me personally, I'm waiting and I will just wait until Valve releases it themselves. I'm not going to do like Chimera is interesting to me, but back when I have an iPhone, but I didn't always have an iPhone. I used to have a Samsung Galaxy Note 2, right? And I know a really long time ago. I got that, and I was like, oh, you know what? One of the cool things about Android is I get to install whatever operating system I want. So I installed this operating system, and then suddenly all my stuff wasn't working, and it took me like an entire weekend to get things back to the way that they were because I wasn't using like the official stuff. And it stemmed from essentially Google had put out a new version of Android, and Samsung was like, well, you got to wait before it comes to our system. And I was like, I don't want to wait. I bought this thing. So I tried to shoehorn it on there, and I ran into too many problems. And so that scared me away from doing this because I don't want to spend all day trying to fix a thing that is currently working, even if it's not working the way that I want it to. So I love that Linux is, video games on Linux is, doing really, really well. Obviously better than Mac because people who are buying Macs like myself, I don't buy it to play games on, although I did try and play Baldur's Gate 3 on my Mac because it is supported. Wouldn't even friggin' start. It wouldn't start. And it says it is compatible with Mac. So, you don't have those problems thanks to Proton on Linux. And I do think that we're going to see more of that soon. All right, let's move on. Carrie, why don't you pick up one of the topics from our show notes, and we'll talk about that.
I think I'll go with why Baldur's Gate 3 is not coming to the Xbox Series right now. I think we'll start with that. So I think one of the things that I like about that is that actually Plagman actually gave the answer to someone. Was like, hey, how can I force Steam Deck to force split screen mode? And he's like, oh, just do whatever command 0, Steam Deck 0 and command in the arguments, Steam arguments when you're launching the game. And someone got it running and was like, oh, well, I guess you can run it on something that's extremely underpowered. And sure enough, in certain areas, it goes down to like 14 FPS. But I think the key thing here is that a lot of people are looking at the Series S in a weird light. And there's this, there's a part of me that thinks that it's, I don't like that people are convinced that the Series S is this vehicle to slow down the next generation of games, or it is anything other than personally I feel like it's a better mechanism to almost force optimization on it works for Windows as well as it does on Xbox because how tied Xbox is to Windows now. But if Larian is having difficulty getting that game running in a split screen mode, and CPU wise all of these platforms are effectively the same. PS5, Xbox Series S, Xbox Series X. Steam Deck only has 4 cores, but it's still basically the same thing. If the only determining component is actually the GPU, then that is something that I think is an interesting angle to look at insofar as that is the exact thing that Microsoft was saying, is that this is going to scale in resolutions. This is going to scale in effects, not so much from CPU because CPU is matching on across all of them. So that is something that, also I'm saying this from the greedy side of myself, knowing that an Xbox Series S, especially forcing every developer to make that, makes a cleaner landing pad for an Xbox handheld to happen. So there is that desire from me that I really like I think that if Microsoft said we're coming out with a handheld, it's going to be running the Xbox Series S profile on it, everyone's going to be like, oh, that's actually pretty good, instead of, hating on it as much as they did. So go ahead.
I was to say, I think something you're not saying outright necessarily, and maybe you are also saying, maybe you're not. It feels like it's become fodder for fanboy arguments, right? Like, that's all it really is. And I saw one tweet just as an example, and I don't know if, I'm not going to attribute malice to this tweet. It could just be that they were out of the loop. But I saw one tweet that didn't even mention the split screen, right? And it was just like saying that what you're implying, right? Like the Series S is holding back the generation and they even use Steam Deck as a something in their argument where they're saying it runs on the Steam Deck. Why doesn't it run on the Series S? When I would think damn right that the reason it doesn't run on the Series S is literally just the split screen, which is also disabled on the Steam Deck. So that part of the conversation is being left out, and I think it's precisely because it's fanboy fodder. But again, to be fair, it could just be that this person wasn't up on what happened, but it just seems like people are just using it as to fuel the console wars.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that thinks that Microsoft is working hand in hand with AMD pretty hard. So they have some type of forecast. They see some roadmap that not everyone is privy to until months later, right? So ostensibly there was some forecast for at least FSR 2, right? A upscaling technology that you can run at lower resolutions and then upscale do image reconstruction. I don't know if like in 2020 FSR 3 was a planned feature, because when you look at the Xbox Series consoles, they are full fat RDNA 2 versus what the PS5 has, which is a mixed breed. So when you look at it, there could be an argument that when FSR 3 comes out, when you have frame interpolation going into there, now all of a sudden, instead of hitting 15 FPS, you can go to 30 FPS. And if they can successfully achieve that, that is going to be interesting. But all the optimizations that people are doing to get to the Series S right now, and then to then piggyback when FSR 3 becomes a reality, that's going to be very interesting for the Series S, but also for a handheld, but for the entire ecosystem that they've been kind of pushing since 2020. So yeah, that's the kind of target. The thing that I want to discuss right now is that I think from an optimization standpoint, it's certainly possible, because if it seems like the only thing that's really holding it back is GPU resources, then the Series S has enough muscle there, provided that you can, especially with FSR2, which is, I thought that is coming for Baldur's Gate 3, right? It's not there right now, but it
It's
is.
not, but it is in the future, is what my understanding is.
Yeah, so I would suspect myself personally that when FSR2 is implemented, that the Series S should be able to leverage that, and then you're going to see something that the Series S might have meet certification. So that's where my eyes would be currently.
Well, one more thing to keep in mind for this is that Baldur's Gate 3 for PC, the release date was moved up, right? This was meant to be released a few months later, almost 2 months later, I want to say. So they're kind of scrambling. They were kind of scrambling to get it out. That's why reviewers didn't get a review copy until pretty late. So this is it. It's all still pretty developing. So just give them time, I would say.
Yeah.
And I saw some tweets that were like, it's time to ditch the Series S. It's holding everything back. And that's so ridiculous. First off, Microsoft made a promise. When they came out with the Series, they said, hey, the games that you get on your Series X are also going to be the games that run on the Series S. And if they renege on that now, that's not cool. So for people calling for them to ditch the Series S because it's delaying the release of Baldur's Gate 3 on that system, I think is a ridiculous thing. I'm sorry, Carrie, you were about to say something.
No, so I mean, let's just take it from a whiz biz type of decision, right? If you are going to be PC and it's a CRPG, so that's where you know that you're going to have the strongest buyers, right? That's where all the people are going to be. It's going to be interesting to see how many PlayStation people buy Baldur's Gate 3 because it's going to be interesting. I'm very curious to see what the sales numbers are, considering how I see, like everyone's talking about concurrent numbers right now, and it's like breaking like the top 10 of all time concurrent. So it's going gangbusters. And I think from the optics of that alone, people are like, well, if so many people are playing it, I should be getting this. But outside of that, when you were like for Larian to say, okay, we're going to go PC first, if we have to specifically optimize for the next console, we have to do PS5 because that's where the biggest place is going to be. And Xbox by default, because of where it is, they can't devote any resources to it that are going to match whatever the PS5 is if the lion's share of the money is going to be coming from PS5. So there's almost a part of me that would say, okay, I can understand that point of view as well. But yeah, there's a lot of different tweets. There's like some PlayStation fanboys that are like saying, Baldur's Gate 3 is a PlayStation exclusive, and the CEO was like, no, it's not an exclusive, and they're like, well, it's only on that system, so you can say whatever you want, but until that
Yeah.
happens, so it's a weird situation right now, but I can totally understand it from a business decision why they went the route they did.
Good point on the PlayStation. It turns out at Benji Sells, he tweeted that it moved up to the #1 best-selling pre-order on PSN in the
Nice.
US. So it definitely, the PC reception has definitely had an impact on pre-orders.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
Russ, what do you think about this?
It's interesting. I don't know if I said it on air or off air, but I am planning on now getting a Series X. And it has nothing to do with power or anything. It's because my Xbox One, it's just a huge machine. I have the old school one, and it just takes up so much space, but I still have a bunch of disc games. And I can't play them unless I have that huge box. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to get rid of my Series S and the Xbox One and now have an Xbox Series X. And it's funny because it has nothing to do with performance, none of that stuff. I could care less about it. It's just that I want to be able to play my older games. I'm actually kind of lamenting this even before I do it because I'm like, oh, it's going to be bigger. I don't want to have that much space, because the X is just huge, So I'm listening to all this and I'm like, oh, this is really interesting, that there's people who are kind of speculating about, why it's not being released and all this other kind of stuff. And for me, I'm just like, well, I just want to play an old Xbox One game without having to rebuy it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. You know what I mean? But yeah, it is interesting. And I'm holding off until we get, whether or not there's going to be news if there's a Starfield limited edition Xbox Series X, and then I'll get it. So
I 100% guarantee there's going to be a Starfield limited edition Series X. There's no way that they don't put it out. If Carrie picks one up and he's like,
wow,
this thing is so sweet.
For the audio listeners, Carrie's holding up the Starfield Microsoft headset, and it is gorgeous.
My controller's upstairs. I actually got both of them. Just because I love the styling. I bought the Halo limited edition Xbox Series X just because I'm a huge Halo fan. So if they come out with Starfield, I'm going to be in trouble because then I'm going to have 3 Series X's, and I don't need that many. I don't need 2.
That's awesome. Russ, why don't you pick a story for us to talk about? Oh, wait, did you already go? No.
I did.
You did, Rich. No, the other Russ. I was thinking of you, but I couldn't remember who actually went. Rich, why don't you... Damn it. Pick a story, man.
So I'm going to go... I'm coming late to the party here, but I'm going to go with the Square share price falling after Final Fantasy 16 did not hit their expectations. And I want to draw a parallel to previous Square Enix games not hitting expectations, but I also want to point out that it's not the same as previous situations. So it looks like the share price fell. So this is just a reaction from the shareholders. This is not Square saying that they didn't meet expectations, but instead the shareholders sort of inferring that happened. And, the thing with share prices is that, it's going to fluctuate. It's just perception at this point. So it's going to go up, it's going to go down. But I do think it's weird to me that 3 million copies sold on an install base of 45 million, 40 million, maybe.
I don't think it's 40 yet, but I think it's close to 40. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, that's insane. That's almost 10%, right? Attach rate on an RPG, right? So I know it's Devil May Cry now, but it's still an RPG. It's still Final Fantasy, which is popular, but that's almost 10% attach rate. That seems great to me. So it seems insane that this would cause a stock price drop. I don't know what the shareholders were necessarily expecting. So yeah.
The expectations is in quote in the show notes for a reason, because it didn't meet. So I guess the expectations were a range, right? And it's in the range, right, but it didn't reach the top of the range. And so they were like, well, that's it. This is garbage. And then the CEO, I think, of Square came out and he was like, it's because the PlayStation 5 hasn't, there's not enough PlayStation 5s out in the wild, which is a ridiculous thing. Like you just said, it's almost a 10% attach rate. It's crazy for them to say, well, it's blame it on PlayStation. Yes, if they also sold it on Xbox, it would have sold more. But I don't think
Yep.
the game would be out if they also were making it for Xbox at the same time. Like, there's an advantage to focusing on a single platform, getting your game working on that, and then moving on to making a port to another platform. And Square had said many times that people from Sony helped them optimize the game for that platform, which I believe Microsoft I think Microsoft is currently doing with Baldur's Gate 3. Like, they have engineers from the Xbox team helping the Baldur's Gate 3 people get the split screen stuff working on that system. Awesome. But again, you look at Xbox fanboys looking at this story, and they're saying, see, it's because it wasn't on our system. Okay, maybe, but it's also because of other reasons. This is a very different Final Fantasy game, and a lot of people were probably like, it's not for me. And that's fine. But 3 million copies in however many days since launch, I think that's pretty good. Carrie, go.
Yeah, so for me, I think the share price fell. Just if I was a shareholder, I would have sold a long time ago, just because I don't have confidence in whoever's running the ship of Square Enix at the moment, just because they're making absolutely bat crazy ideas. The last year, they literally dumped almost every game that they had, like rapid fire. Like Octopath Traveler 2 came out, like it was Strangers of Paradise. So it was just like,
Yes.
let's just dump everything. Also, we're going to sell off all of our Western stuff, and we're going to sell it for pennies. Like Tomb Raider, Deus Ex. Yeah, just here, take it all for 300 million. Oh, you resold just Tomb Raider for 600 million to Amazon? Good job, guys. Like, what in the world are they doing over there? Why are they just like? It almost seems like whoever's running it. I don't. From outside in, I think a lot of people are like, they are looking to be acquired. They're just like shedding off a bunch of stuff. And for me, it doesn't look great. And Final Fantasy 16 is probably the cherry on top from all of this, right? Because Final Fantasy is their premier title. This is the game, along with Dragon Quest, that would stop Japan. Like, Japan's productivity would stop that entire week because this game launched, and that's not happening. So when you're faced with this, I would personally look at everything up to that point, and not so much Final Fantasy 16 itself. But I'm going to play it when it comes to PC. I'm going to look at it and I'll probably enjoy it. But it's like, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing or what they're planning. And I have zero confidence in my money being in that company myself. And that's just from me outside in and not actually a shareholder. So that's the only 2 cents that I would add to it.
Russ,
weird thing-
go ahead, Rich.
Just real quick, the weird thing about that is I agree with all of that. Like, I don't understand the business moves that they're making, but they're making really good games. That's the thing that Octopath 2 is amazing.
Fantastic. It was so good. So good.
Right?
I'm upset that no one, like, they're like, oh, they just sent that out to die and no one played it. And I was like, I don't know what they're doing. It was great. I liked Octopath Traveler 1, and 2 was much, much better. That was a proper sequel. They did a much better job everywhere. That felt to me, for me, I hope that development cost wasn't all that much, because for me, I would like, Square, just do more of this. Do more 2D HD games. Bang them out. Get them done. Also, I think from Square Enix's side, like, they got to just get rid of the what is it? The Luminous engine? What is it? Whatever the Final Fantasy 16 engine is. Just go over to Unreal Engine 5, like every other, what they've already been doing with UE4. Now just go over to UE5. Because how much faster has Final Fantasy 7 Remake been in terms of, like, development cycle and release versus Final Fantasy 16? And for me, I think this is just hopefully they can just get back in step. Totally agreed that they did release a lot. They did actually release bangers that no one actually looked at.
That's fair. What do you think, Russ?
It's interesting. A couple things I thought about. One is that this is a tough time, especially of the year, to be releasing a game. Like just the release window. We talked about this in previous episodes. So many other games are coming out, and I think among all of them, Final Fantasy 16 is the one that had the least amount of urgency for me. One, like Carrie mentioned, like it's like, okay, well, I can just wait. It'll be on PC at some point, and I'll probably enjoy that better and have more platforms to play it on. But then also, like the other games had a sense of urgency to them. You got to get Street Fighter 6 now so you can get good before everyone else does, right? You've got to play Tears of the Kingdom before the spoilers start showing up on Twitter. I didn't have any of that urgency when it came to Final Fantasy 16 at all. You know what I mean? It's like, I'll wait 3 years to play that game. It'll be waiting for me when I'm ready, and it'll be $20 by then, And so I don't know. I think it's just a hard time right now for the Final Fantasy 16 series because they're also shooting themselves in the foot, because when they reiterate with every single new number, whether it's a new story, new characters, all that kind of stuff, I care less and less about it. Like I want to see Vivi again from Final Fantasy 9. I want to hang out with that dude and Zidane and stuff, and so I can see why Final Fantasy 7 has a bit more of a draw for me, just in the sense that I kind of revisit something that's from my childhood. Final Fantasy 16 to me, like, I played through that preview or the demo, and it was just like a bad version of Game of Thrones is what it felt like when I was playing it. And I love the Devil May Cry kind of part to it too as well. That's pretty funny. But yeah, and so that's my take on it. Is just that yes, I can see where it maybe didn't hit their expectations in terms of sales, but there are so many factors involved, and you just have to think about the human factor, especially for us with as gamers. There's just so many options out there, and it didn't make my list. I never bought it. So.
Yeah, I mean, we had earlier this year, we had an episode of the podcast where we talked about this year as one of the best years for gaming ever because there's so many absolutely fantastic games coming out. Like that crowds out a lot of these other games. And when you look at a game like Final Fantasy 16, it's a big time commitment. I mean, last week we were talking to Kyle, and Kyle beat Final Fantasy 16. I think he 100%ed it because that dude's crazy. But like, there's just not enough hours in the day for us to play all of the huge, massive games that have come out in the past few months. And we have a bunch coming down the road in the next month or two that are also going to be huge, massive games. So stick around. I'm sure that we'll end up talking about those. Anybody have any final thoughts on Final Fantasy 16 before we move on? All right. I'm going to pick a story, and it's going to be about Street Fighter 6. The game came out in June, and then July, we get a new character. And then it was just announced at EVO that they're going to have another new character DLC. And to me, this doesn't feel like post-launch content. Like when I think of post-launch content, it's content that comes out after launch because the developers are still working on it or even started working on it after the game came out. Having these two new characters that are already coming out, and like the first guy came out within a few weeks of launch. He's already balanced in there with the other characters. This feels like stuff that that Capcom, and full disclosure, I'm a Capcom partner, whatever it is, whatever it's called. It feels like they said, okay, we've got our finished game. Let's yank out 6 characters, take them off the roster, launch the game like that, and we'll drip feed them out as part of the battle pass or like that kind of thing. And that's what it feels like to me. It feels like it's too soon for this DLC. Maybe I'm wrong. Rich, what do you think is the right amount of time after a game comes out for that DLC to start to be available where it doesn't feel like they're holding things back from you? Or do you think I'm way off base?
Yeah, I think your reasoning is sound, but I do take a completely different stance on this, where I don't really care about like what was budgeted for release versus what was budgeted for expansion. I think that the base game was really, really good. It was chock full of characters, so I don't mind that. Maybe they did pull characters out. I don't think they did, because when we saw the character leak, like this has been the plan, it seems like, for a while. because there was a character leak months before release. I think what realistically happened is that they had a budget for the game, and then they had a separate budget for DLC, and they worked those towards the end. They worked those concurrently, and so people were working on DLC while they were balancing the game, while they were adding in arcade mode, things like that. And the other side of this is that I think this is just them improving their marketing. So Street Fighter V had a long period of time. It released in a state where people were unhappy with its release, and it had a long period of time before it got to a place where people were happy with it. And so Capcom has been nonstop with their marketing for this, where they're leading up. They have, they had Evo. It was a $2 million pool for or pot for the winners. It was $1 million for the grand prize winner, and then after, like you said, leading up to that, they had Rashid, and now coming out of it, they have this new character. So I think they're just trying to keep Street Fighter 6 at the top of players' minds and make sure that it doesn't leave sort of that mainstream space.
That's fair. What do you think, Carrie? Do you think it's too soon, or do you think I'm making a big deal out of nothing?
So there's a bit of an allegory here that I'm gonna kind of step into. I think we're just all old. I think we're all old, and we have our own expectations of what things should be for DLC or whatnot. And I went to Dave and Buster's yesterday. It was a birthday party they went to, and everything that the kids were playing, they're playing Deal or No Deal to get tickets. And I'm like, what are you doing? There's like good games over there. You're playing a thing to get rewards. You're not playing to have fun. You're playing to get something else. And there was the Chuck E. Cheeseification of arcades that happened in the 90s. And console gaming, it never happened to up until PUBG and other stuff, where you had these season passes and battle passes. Now we're in the Chuck E. Cheeseification of our games that we're playing. Now you look at Halo Infinite. One of the things that I absolutely hated was that people were like, "Oh, this battle pass sucks." I'm like, who cares? Why are you playing for like nonsense rewards of like cosmetics? The game is fun. Like, it's legit tight. Why you're the optics of where we all are versus what other people are doing. The market has dictated that if you're making a multiplayer game and season passes and battle passes, there needs to be this constant content. Much like how we as content creators need to keep on feeding the beast, these people that are making multiplayer games now need to feed the beast. And it's counter to what our expectations are growing up with video games, and it feels out of place when we look at it through that lens. So that's the only thing I would add.
All right. Russ, if you could pick one retro game to add a battle pass to.
The thing is like with this whole battle pass and like even the trickle out of DLC and stuff like that, every time I see any announcement like this, it actually just fills me with like a little bit of like dread and anxiety, because I'm like, I'll never get to that. Like, I just want to be able to beat the game itself. You know what I mean? Like, let me just get through the campaign and not worry about all these other add-ons. Like, the moment I saw that Diablo 4 was starting to get seasons and that, like, you had to finish one thing before the next season started, I didn't even read enough about it. I was just like, this is... like, it's too much, you know what I mean? And so I'm on that other end of the spectrum. Not only am I old and grumpy, but I also like don't have enough time to play these games either. So I'm like the worst nightmare when it comes to this battle pass stuff, because I can't click out of it fast enough. When any of that stuff pops up in any game I play, I'm like, I don't want to see any of that stuff. Give me just what the creators created when it was launched. That's all I want.
That's awesome. I will say, just to bring it right back into Baldur's Gate 3 again, Larian was asked, are we going to have DLC for this game? And Larian said, no, we've shipped the game. We're done with the game. We're moving. We'll do patches to like make sure that stuff isn't broken. We're going to move on and work on something else now. And Beautiful. So you get a complete package when you buy that game, which is very rare these days. All right. Anything else before we move on to the end topic, the discussion topic?
One more thing on that. Just adding on to what I was saying. It's very hard right now it's not hard for fighting game developers, but there's a lot of fighting games coming out, a lot of big ones. So it's hard to keep your eyes on one game. And, going back to what I was saying, I think that's what Capcom is trying to do. But just to double down on that, there's Mortal Kombat 1, right, which was announced, and we just saw the DLC that's going to be coming out for that, and it's kind of cool, right, with Omni-Man and Peacekeeper and Homelander, right? So it's pretty awesome. There's Tekken 8 and there's Project L. So there's a lot going on right now, and it's already hard for a fighting game player to play more than one fighting game at once. So I can see why everybody's trying to get people's eyes on their game.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So we're going to move on, but before we do, real quick, I just want to let everybody know that we've talked about PlayStation a bunch today. DualSense controllers are right now 30% off, so you can get them for $50 as opposed to the regular $70. So I'll leave a link down below, but I just wanted to let people know about that because it's a really good deal, and those are really good controllers. Let's move on to the topic that was sent in. Oh, what do we got there? I know that's an Wait, what is that?
It's the God of War Ragnarok.
Oh, the Ragnarok one. Nice. Okay.
PlayStation needs to make more limited edition DualSense controllers. They got to up their game.
I don't know. I don't want to have a bunch of them, and I don't want to want them.
Yeah, but I feel like you need 2 because the batteries are they're so short.
Oh, yeah.
That if you're really going to get in a gaming session, you need to have the other one on standby sometimes.
DualSense akimbo, just like
DualSense akimbo. Oh, that's so good. All right. Moving on to our discussion topic. This was sent in by John Rodriguez. If you want to send in a topic and we pick your topic, just like John did, I'll send you a code for a game on Steam. So make sure that you check that out. Here's what they said. They said, pick a game or 2 that you'd like to see adapted into a different genre. I'll give an example. I'd love to see Diablo, whatever it's an all new game, or they retell a story that's been done already in a Souls-like space. The tones and everything fit the story and gameplay, so it would be interesting to see how they could take a game like Diablo and translate it to the Souls format, but keep the Diablo-style character classes in there. I thought that this was a really cool topic. Russ, what is the game and what genre that you think that you would like to see a different version of?
Yeah, so hear me out. Super Mario Brothers, but a role-playing game, but a driving game. So I want to see basically a career mode in Mario Kart where you're actually going through and full on upgrading your guy or whatever. You know what I mean? Right now it's just you can unlock new levels and stuff like that, and you can do these split screen and stuff like that. And that's probably the major draw there, but still, it would be neat to have an incentive to actually get through other than just unlocking new places, really to kind of build things out. And it's funny, this is almost like DLC, where you're unlocking new content and all that kind of stuff. But for me, this is really fitting, to have something where you level up your guy, you level up your car, stuff like that.
That sounds really awesome. And it would give you so much more replayability because you got to level up Mario. Then you got to go through level up Luigi. You got to go through level up Toad, and you got to level up the different parts to their car. That sounds awesome. Is this giving you? I'm gonna get it wrong. That TurboGrafx 16 one that Carrie always wants to. Is that?
I was gonna say that. Yeah.
I played a little bit of it. I didn't love it. What's it called? Racing Twin.
Final Lap Twin.
Final Lap Twin. Is that what Final Lap Twin is like? Because I never got into it.
It's just car upgrades. No
car upgrades.
Yeah.
All right. That's fair.
I really thought a lot about Destiny 2 when I was thinking about it. I'm like, okay, I want something with that mechanic where I'm invested in my character. You know what I mean? I want to have that same kind of thing, but with Mario Kart.
Awesome. That's very cool. I like that idea. Rich, what do you think, man?
I really like it I like the idea of action games becoming turn-based games. I want to see 2 examples in that regard. I want to see a basketball game that's a turn-based game. I think Pyre has tried that, and I haven't done enough. I haven't tried Pyre. It's one of the few games from that studio that I haven't really played. So I want to try that. But yeah, I'd love to see basketball get turn-based. And we were just talking about fighting games. I'd like to see turn-based fighting games. So there actually is one called Yomi. I think it's Your Only Move something. Anyway, it's called Yomi. It's on Steam. I've tried it, but it's a little too complex for me. There's a lot of different moves that you can do, and it's head-to-head multiplayer, but it's asynchronous. So you can do a move, you can wait a few minutes, and someone else will do their move. But yeah, I'd like to see more action, but turned into turn-based.
That's awesome. I'd never even considered a turn-based fighting game. Instead of having it be turn-based, where it's I go and then you go and then I go, I would like it instead to be we both pick an action and then those actions happen at the same time.
Yeah.
That I think would be really cool.
I think the
Tecmo
game I
Super Bowl.
mentioned. Yeah, that's a good one. I think the game I mentioned does do that. It's actually called Yomi Hustle. Your only move is hustle. That's what it stands for.
Okay. Awesome. Very cool. Carrie, what'd you pick for your genre bending stuff?
Yeah, it's funny because we're all like going into like RPG things. It's like a progression of character and stuff. So here's the thing: like I don't know why it hasn't been made yet because honestly, it's pretty much identical. Like think about it: you have like flamboyant characters with crazy costumes and crazy hairstyles with gigantic weapons that they use to attack people with in an RPG, and I'm talking about wrestling, obviously, not like crazy characters in a party system. Why has there never been an RPG wrestling game where
It's
you
coming.
like? I see WrestleQuest, but there's a part of me that like feels like that has been as plain as day, where you have, especially when you go back to like 80s wrestling, where the main character, the protagonist, gets fueled by the audience around him rather than any other source of energy. And it's just, that Hulk Hogan type of energy where he's just like rising up even though he's losing. There is that fantastical sense that's already been in live action wrestling that would fit perfectly into a wrestling RPG game. And figure like, when you unlock new abilities like, a super body slam or whatever, I just feel like there's a lot of finesse and just flavor that you could put in a game like that would translate exceedingly well to a wrestling game outside of the very actiony way that it is, where you're just like hammering buttons to like try to beat someone to whatever. Like whenever you grapple up, you're usually just like slamming on a button, and whoever wins. I feel like turn-based would work way better in that space.
Yeah. So when does WrestleQuest actually come out, Rich? Do you know?
It's this month. I don't know what day, but it's this month on Switch and PC at least.
See, I could not care less about wrestling even a little. I watched it when I was a kid, and I got past it, and I just don't care about it. But WrestleQuest has my attention. Like that game looks really fun and enjoyable.
Tomorrow.
It comes out tomorrow?
Tomorrow on
Oh,
Steam.
well,
yeah.
I'm not playing it because I just bought Baldur's Gate 3, and that's the game I'm playing right now. But it's definitely, it's like Russ said earlier, it's not a game that is like, okay, it doesn't have urgency to me.
Right.
And so it's definitely going to go on my wish list. It's going to be a great game to play on the Steam Deck or on the ROG Ally. Turn-based games like that are just always really, really great for that. All right. So for me, I have two. One is super easy, and I talked about it in a recent video. A Monster Hunter MMO with a persistent open world. Like I would love to see that. But then the second one that I thought of during the show is a Street Fighter 6. Like take the characters from Street Fighter 6, and instead of having a fighting game, have it be a side-scrolling beat 'em up, like Streets of Rage, like Final Fight. I would love to see that. We had a game like that with, and I never played it, but Mortal Kombat had a side-scrolling beat 'em up with Sub-Zero a million years ago. I would really like to see Streets of Street Fighter. I guess I don't know. That's the one that I would really, really like to see, just because it would be an easy. Like I think that would be an easy thing for them to do. But that's just me. But let us know in the comment section down below, what are some genre changes that you'd like to see to some of your favorite games. And if you are listening to the show on your favorite podcast app, don't forget to rate the show. It is available wherever podcasts are downloaded. I had somebody leave a YouTube comment. They were like, I can't find it on Google Podcasts. And so I sent them a link. It's there. So make sure that you guys check out the description down below. Subscribe to all of these guys' channels if you haven't already, and subscribe to the podcast in your favorite podcasting app, and leave a like while you're down there as well. Anybody have anything videos that are coming out soon? Russ, what do you got coming out soon? This big video you've been working on.
I've been working on the RGB 10 Max Pro. This is the worst name in the world, but this is a $115 handheld that runs Linux and has some pretty good power. I can play all the way up to PSP, a little bit of GameCube and PS2. So good price, good potential, pretty good form factor. There's just a lot of issues, software and hardware with it, and so that's what's taken me so much time. But I'm hoping that video will be out tomorrow because it's pushing back all my other videos right now. I'm already 3 days past my potential release date that I had in my head and in my Google Calendar, and so I just need to get done with it.
And by the time you guys see this, that video will be out probably because this doesn't come out until 2 days. I need time to edit. So make sure that you guys check that out. Carrie, what videos you been working on, man?
Last video I did was the GameCube Joy-Cons made by Nixie. They're the Nixie Wizard. So that is a video that I just put out just recently, and it operates as I was hoping it would, which is that you see some things that are like Joy-Con-like, but they only work in a wired manner and they won't work in a wireless manner. So these are essentially GameCube controllers that can be split apart and work just like a Joy-Cons are. So you dock them in, they can charge while they're docked, you can take it out, and all the gyros are working in there. So they're really cool. I don't know if it's going to get a lot of traction. The other video I'm working on is the iNeo 1S. Just finished up all the benchmarks in the background while I was doing that, and I'm just going to be demoing it off. So it is probably their best, smallest device that they have available right now. And then I'm also working on a bunch of other videos that I'm going to try to plan for later.
Awesome. Rich, what about you, man? What videos we got to look forward to?
Yeah, so August is a little weird for me in terms of schedule. We're closing out the summer, so we've got a lot of family activities planned. But at the same time, I have a lot of videos that I do want to get out. So I'm almost done with a 1X Fly review. I'm working on the Air 1S Air Plus 1S review as well. So I have those coming, and hopefully I'll get out a news video as well this week. So a lot of stuff I'm working on for sure.
Awesome. And I was recently on an episode of the podcast Wait You Haven't Seen with TV's Travis. It's a movie podcast, and we watched what might be the worst movie that I've ever seen. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Yes, I will. It's Jiu-Jitsu starring Nicolas Cage. It's a train wreck, but I also enjoyed watching this train wreck. So I'll try and put a link. I don't know if the episode will be out by the time this comes out, but if it is, I'll put a link down below so that you guys can check that out. But that does it for this episode of the NerdNest podcast. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. And if you enjoyed this video, you'll probably enjoy this one. Stay rad, everybody. Bye-bye.